So yeah, the people have to work in collaboration and bring in the wood and to build the structure so that we're working together, and then they have a lot more respect and learn about the building of the system and how it works. So I go and speak to the families and teach them all about the way that it's filtered and how they can keep it clean and change it. And it's just myself and another woman from the Committee of Human Rights that do it. So it's a girl-powered operation, which is inspiring also to the women who are not used to seeing women actually go down there and build something. So yeah, just the two of us have actually been building these installations ourselves. So she's an amazing woman locally that has been working for the Committee of Human Rights down there. So I've been working with different tribes. These are the Kofan, the Quichua, the Sequoia. And this film, Bajo Suelos Ricos, below rich soil, there's a little valley in Tag, and they were wanting to go in mining there for copper. And the local people put up such a resistance to the mining industry and fought them, and were able to kick out this massive industry that had gone into their territory because they'd heard about the contamination from the mining and were not going to let it happen in their area. So there has been massive resistance against the mining company. So this is the traditional houses, traditional backpacks of the people. This is another fantastic, simple solution. The toilets and the pig shit is collected and it washes down into this piece of long plastic tube. The gas is then collected, and that pipe, which runs up there, pipes it straight off to their kitchen. And so they're cooking on the gas from the shit. So it's an incredibly simple, very effective way of harnessing the gas. And also they have a flax, a fibre, which they've been weaving and spinning and looking for alternative solutions for those families that don't want to work with the mining industries. We've also set up an environmental clinic to teach them about seed swapping, because their diet has become so terrible down in the Amazon that although they're surrounded by an abundance of a lot of the fruits and the vegetables that we eat today, a lot of them come from there. And the people now have been sucked into the white bread, white sugar reality of terrible diets, no fruit, no vegetables. So we started a program to encourage them to have once a month seed swaps and start growing again the fruit and vegetables close to the house and bring it back to them from the forest so that they start utilising again the resources which are all around the Amazon. And this is the dreaded palm oil. So last year I went out to a village and we drove for 4 hours through a palm oil plantation. So that kind of just gives you a bit of an idea of the size of some of these plantations. I mean, from here, I don't know how far we'd go in 4 hours, but that was just palm oil, which had once been virgin rainforest, and nothing can survive amongst a palm oil plantation. So they will just totally deforest it and put in these lines of palm oil, which is what's running a lot of the industry around the world. And so I really recommend people to learn about palm oil, to boycott palm oil. It's in everything. It's this cheap oil. People like Kraft, Nestle, Tesco, they're massive, massive consumers of palm oil. So become really aware of what's in it, and if you can, at all costs, avoid it, because it's causing massive destruction of the world's rainforests. So yeah, palm oil is what we don't want. So Yasuni National Park, how many people in here have heard about Yasuni? Nobody. It's the most biodiverse area on the planet. It's right on the equator where the Andes meets the Amazon. So it's right on this edge. It's this incredible diversity. And within a 6 square kilometre test site, they found 550 kinds of birds, 200 kinds of mammals, and just an incredible abundance of wildlife. So what happened in the last ice age was, as the ice was going around the planet, all the creatures are moving away from the ice. And they came to this place on the equator, which became like the Noah's Ark. And that's why it has this incredible amount of biodiversity. There's also 2 uncontacted tribes, the Tagari and the Taramanani, that have never had contact with the outside world, and they're still living as they always have done, deep in the jungle. they've just discovered there's oil and there's light crude in Yasuni. And there's very, very little light crude left on the planet now. We're all down to heavy crude, and so they're going into the last places. And so environmental organisations around the world are saying, you know, you can't be serious. This is the most biodiverse area on the planet, and you're wanting to go in there and get the oil out. So what has been proposed by the United Nations and the Ecuadorian government is to leave the oil in the ground. So this is like a first time that anyone has ever thought of what a concept actually, if we leave it in the ground and don't burn it, that might actually really help towards climate change. So there's been, you know, actions. Yasuni is the heart of the planet. And, you know, is it the last piece or is it the first piece which can be an example to the world of leaving resources in the ground and moving countries like Ecuador away into a more sustainable future? So we've got until December to find another $60 million for the government to stop this. It was $3.6 billion that they were looking for, and we found, you know, a couple of $1 billion. Countries have been coming up and giving this money, so you know, it has been moving along, but England has given nothing at all. Spain has, Germany has, Peru has, I mean there's a number of countries that have, including Spain, that have wiped off 35 million off of their debt. So this is a great, you know, initiative, which is a great, fantastic example of what we can do if we really do care about climate change. We need to just stop burning the stuff, so therefore just not get it out of the ground in the first place. Huge amount we're talking about of oil not being extracted. If they don't get the money, China is ready there to go in and get it out. And the Chinese have not got the best record on environmental or humanitarian work. So, let's see, we're looking for this money, and so that's the Yasuni ITT initiative. So this is, you know, as we know, the circle of life when it's complete, and that there's no break in it, and at some point the chain has been broken. And what I've also been working with now is bringing that circle back into completion through the using of resources and working in countries where there's a lot of rubbish. And we're so used to, you know, we put it in our recycling bin and we feel really good because it goes away. And we, you know, where is a way? There isn't actually a way. It doesn't really exist. And I can't really put my hand on my heart and say that recycling is a good idea, because it takes a huge amount of resources to actually ship it to, you know, one holding point and then ship it somewhere else and ship it off to China and then go to a hugely energy-intensive factory to be turned into something else. Better is if we can turn the rubbish into a resource and use it right where it is. And in countries like the Amazon, where the river takes it away really nicely. So if you don't have a rubbish man, you know, what do you do with your rubbish? So people either burn it, and they cook with it in their houses, burning plastic, and they don't know. I mean, they can smell it's pretty bad, but no one educates them to say that you don't want to be breathing, and your children don't want to be breathing in this burning rubbish. So otherwise they'll just throw it in the river, and you know, that takes it away well as well. So obviously I realised that this was a major problem down there, and we needed to find some way of dealing with it. So, you know, massive landfill sites, and this was the idea, Pura Vida, which was a group in Guatemala, to get a plastic bottle and put all of the plastic landfill waste into the bottle, including batteries, all sorts of rubbish, and with a stick you compress it in there, and it's amazing that you get a mountain of rubbish like this compressed inside one plastic bottle. And so then what you've got is an eco brick, which is fantastic for building with. So you're tying up all that rubbish into turning it into this useful brick which can be built with. So otherwise they're just using concrete blocks, and of course concrete has major impacts as well, so turning this rubbish into a resource. And the advantages of it are fantastic. Against earthquakes, there's movement, incredible insulation, and once it's rendered, you wouldn't know the difference whether it was a block or an eco brick, which is filled with all this landfill. So I've been teaching about this and building various places around the world. So what this method is using chicken wire on building a frame and putting chicken wire on both sides and all the bottles in between. So we've been building a centre for the Committee of Human Rights and schools. And here you can see up the top, that's the structure just with the bottles. Below there, once it's rendered, you wouldn't actually know that, yeah, it was just made from the bottles. This is just with mud, using the bottles with mud. We've been mainly using cement. Here you can see step by step, you know, the importance is obviously in the frame structurally, that it's a strong structure. The walls are not carrying the weight, they're just carrying the fill. And, oh, I think it's going through too fast. So there you can see also, step by step, after it's rendered and painted, the school, there's a huge amount of rubbish, which is tied up into actually making a building like this. So it's a great way of closing these cycles, turning rubbish into a resource. Other things we've been doing is just building like basic walls. Walls are great. Afterwards, there are, you know, cement here. You can see that we always leave a little window so that people can see that this wall is actually made out of bottles. Because otherwise, once it's rendered, people wouldn't believe that it wasn't just a normal concrete block wall. So it's been a great way of teaching the people how to clear it up. And when I first learnt about this, I went to a little village in Guatemala, and there was no rubbish. And I thought, there's something very strange about this place. You know, I was kind of walking around, there's something very strange. And there was this little woman, and she came walking down, and I said to her, "Where's all your rubbish?" And she pointed at these walls, these beautiful walls with all these murals on, and she said, "That's the rubbish." And I actually just thought she was mad. And I was like, okay, you know, and I carried on walking, and I asked somebody else, "Why is your village so tidy? You don't have any rubbish anywhere." And again, they pointed to the walls, and they said, "All of these walls are made from our rubbish." And I was like, man, this is a good idea. And but it still took me a couple of years from seeing that idea and going, you know, all around the world, we look at India, we look at so many places which have massive rubbish problems, and being able to turn that into a practical solution, something that's simple, something that's cheap, that they can build themselves. You know, the people I know here building chicken coops, building benches, so we can actually just start bringing it into our own lives as well, and just building something. And it's so satisfying now. You know, I haven't thrown anything into landfill for a long time, and it takes a really long time to fill one bottle up, because you just keep getting a stick and like wedging it in there, and yeah, and you're creating your own building blocks. So yeah, they're a great idea, these eco blocks. And in parks as well, building these little kind of seats and benches around the trees. And this was a project that I put on in Ecuador where we cleaned up the river, and a big pile of that is from the river, and all of that white plastic waste was from Coca-Cola, their factory, which they burn every day, this huge amount of plastic wrapping. So, you know, I collected that all up, and we put on this day, and I invited the local colleges and the schools, and we put on a competition that who could fill and bring the most bottles that were filled. And what they really needed there was to build these little food restaurants. So this was, we had the police involved, and it got a lot of media attention. And so teaching people about building something there was this really successful day.